Okay then, a 2-2 draw in the end between two of the strongest teams in the Breedon Highland League. A fair result, Callum?
I would say so on the balance of things, and I think both sides kind of agreed that a point was about right. I do think if there was one team that was maybe slightly more likely to win it, it was Banks of Dee. As Josh Winton touched on, they were in front twice, and you'd maybe hope they could push on, but even at 1-0, they had that good chance of Mikey Phillips, and it's cleared off the line by Tom Kelly, and then at 2-1, just after their second goal, Gary Wood hit that volley wide, which in another day maybe goes in the back of the net. And if Banks of Dee, especially with sort of quarter of an hour to go, if Banks of Dee had gone 3-1 up, personally I would have found it hard to see a way back for Brora, but when there was just one goal between the teams, the Carters were always in it, and credit to them, they battled back well, and I think, you know, on the balance overall they deserved something out of the game. I mean, for them, Brora as well, it was more...
It was self-inflicted, wasn't it?
What I was going to say was it was more of a performance like what they've been looking for, because if you look at their 3 games prior to that, well beaten by Buckie, drew with Turriff when on another day I think they maybe could have lost that game, and then even Ali McDonald sort of admitted they were probably a touch fortunate perhaps to beat Lossiemouth 3-2 on last Wednesday. So I think that was more of a Brora performance without them or Banks of Dee in fact fully sort of hitting the heights of what they're capable of.
See, I think it was a good point for Brora, because as I was saying, there was a couple of moments that were almost going to be victims of their own downfall here. There's the mix-up between the goalkeeper and the defender that leads to that one. It's cleared off a line.
Martin McLean's header.
The misplaced header that I think gives Gary Wood a chance. That's saved. Brora were well in the game for me, but by the same token, they could easily have lost it with that couple of wee errors. If they can eradicate that, I'm sure there'll be a lot more wins and they'll be moving up the table.
Possibly worth mentioning, there were a few Brora hands up for Lackey McLeod's opener. There was also, I think Josh Meekins also talked about it in his post-match
There
interview.
was a lot of feeling, and Ali McDonald was playing, and we maybe didn't quite see it in the footage, but as they were getting back for centre, he gave the linesman a piece of his mind, I think it's fair to say. But watching it, and I've had a look at pausing it in the freeze frame, he's onside.
Yeah,
he's timed it well, and Mark Nicholson's playing him on, so no debate with that. In terms of I think the table's worth mentioning as well. Doesn't really help either side. I mean, Banks of Dee's clearly, because they've played the games and got the points on the board, clearly in a stronger position, second in the league. Now, I mean, lost a wee bit of ground on Brechin, 3 points behind, haven't played a game more. The teams play tomorrow or Tuesday night at Glebe Park, and we'll have highlights of that, so keep an eye out for that. But that maybe feels, long way to go yet, but maybe feels to me like that's a game Banks of Dee can't afford to lose. So I just think if you're 6 behind and Brechin also having the game in hand, it's potentially too much. But if Banks of Dee can at least get, I mean, obviously they'd love to win it, but get a draw or something out of that game, keeps them firmly in the mix. Brora aren't ruling themselves out, but it's like if they win all their games now, it would take them to 84 points. Is 84 points going to be enough to win it? You're looking for favours. Another thing is, are Brora capable of winning all their games? And as I said last week, on current evidence and with the teams they've got to play as well, I'd probably lean towards no.
But Dee are right in there. However, when you look at the league table, by the time we get to the end of the season, if Dee are not crowned champions, they're going to look back in all these draws they've had. Because, I mean, 7 now I think they've had in the league so far, which I had a quick look this morning. It's joint highest number of draws is Clach. And so that's really really cost them. They would have been better winning 2 and lost 2.
Won 4 and lost 3 or something. You're right. That's because it's still, that's the thing worth pointing out. Just lastly with Banks of Dee, they've still only lost once in the league this season. As you say, it just is those draws that have hampered them a wee bit. But as Josh Winton said, whatever happens at the end of the season, they're not going to look back and go, "Oh, it was a draw at home at Brora that cost us," because that's not a bad result. But there has been points spilled elsewhere that I think they will look back on with a wee bit of frustration, regardless of what happens come the end of the season.
Okay then, comprehensive enough win in the end there for Fraserburgh. Nairn had a wee spell at 1-0 down, didn't they? If they'd maybe got a goal there, that could have changed things.
Aye, they had a couple of decent chances actually at 1-0, and if they had scored, maybe it would have been different. But I think over the piece, Fraserburgh were deserving winners. I felt they'd created some decent chances that we saw there and got into enough good areas without maybe ever fully taking advantage of the positions they were in. I do also think on another day they might have had a penalty. The handball shout in the first half's maybe you see them given or not given, but I do think the one in the second half, Fraser Dingwall and Ryan Sargent, if that's in the centre circle, it's a free kick. But
it's unbelievable.
Maybe it's one of them because Ryan Sargent's got his shot away. The referee's still happy, but it's one of them. He isn't impeded, in my opinion. But I mean, at the end of the day, it hasn't made any difference to the outcome of the contest. I thought the Broch were good and did what they had to do, and nice for them as well to see with the last goal, Callum Kelly and Joshua Hawkins sort of combining to get that, and they're two players that I kind of quite highly thought of at Belsley.
Yeah, I thought Josh Hawkins was a good finish. Nairn, last week I seem to recall us talking about Nairn having a big week, 2 games which could potentially sort of set the scene for them breaking into that top 5. It didn't go well for them, lost 5-1 to Fairmartin, 3-0 against Fraserburgh.
It didn't go well for them, but I think it's like that shows, and Stephen McCarthy's touched on this previously, that shows you how difficult it is to force your way into that mix against sides like Fairmartin and Fraserburgh. Nairn, if you look at their season, they have been, and where they'll probably look to improve next season, every side that's gone to Station Park has found it difficult, but then maybe away from home it's flipped a wee bit and they've found it more difficult. And it's when you go to places like North Lodge Park and Belsley that, you know, questions are asked of them, and on these 2 occasions Nairn haven't quite been able to find answers. But I do think overall, if you look at Nairn's season, they've had an excellent season. Like, they're still in the best position at the moment to finish 6th in the table. They've won the North of Scotland Cup. Like, I know people maybe speak about progress and everybody wants things to move quicker, but it's regardless of what happens from now to the end of the season, it's been a great campaign for the wee county, and personally I hope that isn't lost in some quarters or overlooked just because of the couple of results over the last week.
To be a top 6 team, you need a good team, a good depth behind that, and I think good resources. And if you look at the ones who are currently in those positions, that is how you would describe all of them. They're all very strong, very capable, and they've got guys coming through sitting on the bench every week chomping at the bit. I think the Park chasing maybe they have a good 11, but they maybe don't have the same depth, and the head-to-head ones are where the top 6 always seem to come out on top, and that's why we've got a league table that looks the way it does.
Nairn are 6th.
But will they stay 6th? I'm not sure about that.
Okay. I've got this one the wrong way around in my notes, which I think was maybe like a sort of subconscious thing, but the first result that we weren't filming the weekend that we'll touch on is the obvious one. Buckie Thistle 2, Clachnacuddin 3. Defeat for Buckie, one of our title chasers. An unexpected defeat, you'd have to say, given they scored a penalty to make it 2-2 in the 94th minute, and looked to have earned themselves a point. It must be really disappointing to then concede a penalty of their own in the 97th minute via Connor Bunce to lose this one. How much stoppage time as well?
Dare I suggest that Buckie lost trying to win?
Well, I was going to say, and hopefully we'll be able to have it on screen for you just now, but Buckie got their equalising penalty and there wasn't even any celebration or anything. It was go and get the ball out of the net and let's get on with it. And then when you see the build up to Clach's winning penalty, Buckie are very open because they're going for the win. And can you blame them for that? Not really, no, because that's the way they are, and they felt there was still time to win the game. And even, I dare say, they would have viewed even a 2-2 draw as a bad result if it had finished like that. Sam Morrison gave away the penalty at the end, and he'll know himself. He won't need anybody to tell him that he just sort of got sucked in and sort of hauled Lewis McKenzie down when he needed to stand up. But I mean, the thing where I think you have to give Clach credit, if I can get that sentence out, is that losing the equaliser as late as it did, it would have been easy to then probably just shut up shop or play out for the 2-2 draw and think that's maybe not a bad point for us. For them to go again and go forward and win the game says a lot about them, and it's an excellent result for them. And it just shows as well, in terms of this title race, on any given day, any team, if they're at it, can cause you a problem. And Buckie, after having that great week of beating Brora, Brechin, Fraserburgh, and looking like they were the sort of team in the box seat, the pressure's now flipped back onto them a wee bit because they're 9 points behind Brechin with the 3 games in hand. And I mean, it looks to me like there could be a lot of twists and turns yet.
I'm sure Graham Stewart's disappointed and his players, but to be fair, if you've just touched on it, that 3 games they won prior, if you'd said to Buckie, you're playing 4 games and you're going to lose 1, which one would you want? If you had to pick one to lose, you'd want to win the other 3 for sure and lose to Clach, because at least you're eating into this gap at the other 3 teams around about you've got.
Yeah, I think they've probably just got to like completely forget that Saturday ever happened. Some bottle as well from Connor Bunce to put away that penalty. When he did, just to clarify, the Buckie lead early on came via Lyle Keir. Clach levelled through Callum Law. That was also in the first half. Lewis McKenzie then had Clach 2-1 up in 81 minutes before the late penalty drama. Let's move to the other, again, title frontrunners, we'd have to say, perhaps.
Well, they're top of the league, so.
Brechin City 3, Wick Academy 1. I noticed early in the game on Saturday that they were actually down to a goal via Gordy McNabb from Wick. But Matthew Wright's header and then a Ewan Loudon double made it 3-1 before the break, and that was all the scoring. Solid, if not spectacular, from Brechin.
That's probably one way of summing it up. Gavin Price didn't seem overly happy with their performance and things like that, but it's one of those things, winning's what counts, and they've done that. And I mean, they've managed, I think, as well, to get themselves in a position of control, and once they're in control of a game, it's not often they relinquish it. Like Ewan Loudon's sort of 2 goals, one quickly, one after the other, just sort of in the last 5 minutes of the first half, gave them that, and then they were able to win 3-1. I think if you're Wick, would have been interested to see what might have happened if it had still been 1-1 at the break, because having been beaten by Buckie last week, things might have been a wee bit edgy, but Brechin having those 2 goals had the control. But I do think you need to give the scorers a bit of credit as well, because you have to remember that last season they went down to Glebe Park and got beat 10-0, and then this time around, basically a year on, they've gone down there and given a very competitive showing and caused a few problems.
For Martin United, 2 Lossiemouth, 2 another decent result, another decent performance from Lossiemouth. They got a result in this one, having given Brora a decent game in midweek. Brandon Hutchison cancelled out Paul Campbell's early opener for Martin before the break. There was then a repeat, by the sounds of things, of the goal we filmed a couple of weeks ago, where Ryan Facker played a beautiful ball through to Ross Morrison to clip it beyond the goalie. To have losses from Adam Emsley for Martin's Aberdeen Loney pulled United back to 2-2. Sounded like there was a late spell for Martin pressure to try and get a winner, but yeah, as I said, it's a better result for a Lossie and a decent few days for them. Either or.
That's what happened. I thought Callum was the way to answer.
You can jump in.
Yeah, it's a good result for Lossie, especially going to North Lodge Park. I don't think anybody is ever disappointed to come away with something from playing for Martin on their own patch. But Stuart Anderson will be disappointed, clearly. He'll have seen the fixtures and thought this is a chance for us to pick up 3 points this weekend. But we've said all season, Lossie on their day are a match for any team. I would argue probably more at home more often than not. But that's a terrific result for them, and it'll be interesting to see if they can go and build on that one.
I think they were due a decent result like at Lossy, because they should have, by all accounts, taken someone out of the game against Brora in midweek. The slight frustration, I would imagine, if you were wanting to nitpick, would be that in both games against Brora and Fairmartin, they've managed to get themselves ahead and haven't been able to hold the lead or extend it and go on and win the game. But clearly, me saying that, if you'd been offered a point before kick-off on Saturday, I'm sure they would have taken it. It's interesting with Fairmartin, because before Saturday I kind of felt they were maybe the sort of one in the title race that was going under the radar slightly, because before kick-off they were 6 points behind Brechin, having played the same number of games, but that's now jumped to 8. And the thing as well that probably makes it harder for them is they don't have Brechin to play again where they could eat into that lead. So it feels like maybe that's like that result on Saturday, and even I look back to the Fraserburgh game we filmed where they were 2-0 up in the closing stages. A couple of those sort of results have just hurt Fairmartin a wee bit in terms of their push at the top end. But regardless of that, with the games they've still got to play, they'll have a say in, because they've still got Bankside and Buckie to play, they'll have a say in what happens. But that was probably just puts them slightly too far back for me, that result on Saturday.
Okay, Keith 2, Rothes 1. Lewis Coolpen had Keith in front in the second half in this one before Kenzie Shepherd equalised direct from a corner.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I scored one now in the Sunday League at one point, but it doesn't reflect well on the defending team, that I never think. But anyway, Keith the 1. Mikey Taylor headed home their winner later in the game. Keith are having a good spell at the moment, aren't they?
4 games unbeaten, 8 points out of their last 12. I think you'd have to say that's pretty good, and I think Keith as well, they're starting to get the results that, in my opinion, their performances have merited previous to now. They've put in a lot of good performances this season without having much to show for it, but over the last couple of weeks they have had something to show for it. I mean, you think you get that wee bit of momentum, then you look at the fixtures and they're playing Brechin on Saturday, so that's a sort of another test for them. But I think, on current form, obviously Keith would start as underdogs, but the way they've played, if they can frustrate Brechin early on in that, you wouldn't maybe rule against them picking up another point or something along the way, because I do think they're a capable outfit. If I look at the other side of it, Rothes, it's 1 win in 13 now, and like it's even some folk are saying things had gone stale under Ross Jack, and sort of maybe that's contributed to it. But of that run of 13 games, 9 of them are now post Ross Jack, so things sort of need to change a wee bit. They do have a lot of important players injured just now, Michael Finnis, Greg Morrison, Alan McKenzie among them, but clearly what we've been used to seeing for Rothes at the minute with the run they're on won't be deemed good enough, I wouldn't think. And then you add in players missing as well. We lost Aidan Wilson on Saturday. He was out of contract in the summer, and they've done a deal to go to Inverurie Locos just now. Although he hasn't had as good a season this season as he did last season, that was another pretty important player and reasonably regular source of goals that's left McKessick Park. So I think Richard Hastings, in terms of trying to sort of rebuild and maybe overhaul things, he's got quite a big job in his hands if you're looking at things or looking at how things are just now.
Drafted in Bruce Milne at the weekend as well.
I saw that. It was good to. I mean, Bruce only said he was stopping in December and now he's back, but I mean, he's a good player. I think if he's got to continue till the end of the season, good experience, and if there's players missing, he's certainly good to fill in.
Yeah. Okay, we've talked about Inverurie Locos signing Aidan Wilson. We'll come on to the Locos game next. Locos 1, Forest Mechanics 0. That's Locos up to 10th in the table now. Difference was Lloyd Robertson's strike, as well as Sean Morrison being sent off early on for Forest by referee Owen Lawrence for foul and abusive language. Steve McDonald, the Forest manager, raging, and also kind of sort of suggested it was like along the lines of I've been maybe effing shoved or something.
Well,
something
I was
along
going to
those
say from what I've heard, Sean Morrison's remark was that's an effing shove, and that's. And actually looking at the clip itself, I do think he was shoved. Aye, but it was a shove anyway. But
harsh.
I think it's what one of these grey areas. I think where there is a major lack of consistency, and really it's not really something that the refereeing fraternity, when it comes to foul and abusive language. They
all have their own interpretation of it.
It's very subjective, and it's not set out really what the threshold is. It depends very much on the referee. Now, we all know what foul and abusive language is, but pardon me, in Sean Morrison's instance there, I don't think he was meaning to be abusive to the official or anything like that. It was basically a throwaway comment to emphasise he was shoved. Now, you can argue, is there too much swearing goes on the pitch over 90 minutes? Maybe there is, but it's like some referees will have a lot worse than that and just bounce off it or whatever, or maybe give a bit back, I don't know. But then I just think, and Owen Lawrence is somebody I've spoken to, and a referee who I actually quite like, but I do think if you're going down that line of Sean Morrison being red carded for that, if that's the sort of standard that merits us sending off now, you're going to have quite a lot of red cards in games going forward.
I think that's where the frustration comes for players and coaches on the sidelines. The differences. For what it's worth, I've always been under the impression if you were swearing in front of an official, you might let it go. If you're swearing at an official, then you're running the risk of getting yourself out of trouble.
The reason I think in this instance, if that was what was said, it's ridiculous. He's not calling the referee
questioning him in any way.
A swear word. He's not. It's just an exasperated sort of thing about what's happened.
And
anyway,
the thing is as well, it's like, okay, Locos maybe haven't won in the manner they would have liked, but there's no question that's changed how the game is played out massively for us, having to play 75 minutes with 10 men. And that's probably what gets lost in it all, is they probably deserve a fair bit of credit for playing as well as they did, and maybe being a touch unfortunate not to get something out of the game given what they were up against.
As you say, Locos won the game. Dean Donaldson, he's got them winning consistently. It's 3 clean sheets in a row now as well, and I think 10th, when you look at how poor the start of the season was under the previous regime, Dean's come in and getting themselves up to 10th, when you look at the table as it is now, that's probably as high as he realistically could get them to. I don't think no matter how many games they'll win between now and the end of the season, they'll potentially close the gap to 9th above them, because it's a long way.
Yeah.
But so he's, in league terms, he's done the job. If they go on and win, like even Express Aberdeenshire Cup, you've got to say that it's been like a cracking start.
Oh, I think Dean Donaldson's done a smashing job since he's went into Harlow Park, and yeah, I would imagine all these eggs is now firmly in the Evening Express Aberdeenshire basket.
Well, they're playing for Martin on Wednesday in the quarter final of that semi-final against Aberdeen, the prize for the winner, so it'll be interesting to see how that pans out, because if they could get through in midweek, that keeps that hopes of silverware alive. I think the thing is, just even going back to the Aidan Wilson signing, it's like you look at what the squad he's now got at Inverurie as well as, and you're not necessarily saying they're going to be challenging to win the league or anything like that next season, but the squad, you already know quite a bit of the squad that he's going to have in place. Like, he's got Aidan Wilson in, who is a proven goal scorer at the level which they were looking for, and then the rest, with the exception of sort of Paul Coots, Mark Suter, Greg Mitchell, the rest of the squad is, and Callum Dingle as well actually thrown there, but the rest of the squad's quite young, and they'll be hoping will still improve and you can keep building with, and then maybe there's a couple of lone boys like Miles Gaffney and Milos Oczmanski. Maybe you can get them back or on a permanent, you don't know, but like you can see already, like you've got a fair idea of what that Inverurie team will be like next season, and you would probably expect with a pre-season and things working with Dean that they could take a step forward again.
Yeah. Okay, final game from the weekend that went ahead to discuss, but just the one postponement on Saturday, but the remaining game is Huntly 7, Strathspey Thistle 0. Should be said that it was 7 for Huntly without main goal scorer Andy Hunter. Angus Grant scoring 5. Why is that called a nap hand? No one knows. Does anyone know?
You need to ask some of our former sub-editing colleagues, I think.
Sub-editing colleagues. Yeah.
Or anyone that does know can comment and tell us properly.
Owen Loveland, OG and Ryan Sewell were the other goals in that one. And that one also sounded like Robbie Foster had a great game. Huntly, they're just 1 point behind Nairn now. It's maybe similar to Nairn in a sense. It's because they had a bit of a sticky spell a couple of months ago. It's maybe easy to forget how good a season Huntly are having.
Well, I've said it before, but I mean, one way, whether they win or lose Huntly, I think it's kind of fair to probably call them the entertainers, given that 7 goals on Saturday. They conceded 6 last Saturday. The Wednesday before that, they won 4-2. Like, there's always and those 7 goals, incidentally, as well, Saturday take them back to being the league's top scorers, which I think. If you looked at the season, certainly hasn't been problems scoring goals. Maybe keeping the backdoor shots been a bit more of the issue. I think if you're looking at their season, they had a very good start, and then the sort of tail end at Alan Hale's time and the start of Colin Charlesworth's time, there's no question they dipped a bit and they didn't have the best of runs. Since then, they have been a bit inconsistent, like beating Strathspey, beating Nairn, scoring goals that they've and amongst that they've lost 4-0 at Turriff, 6-0 at Fraserburgh, so it's been up and down, but no question that on their day, when it clicks and they show the sort of attacking prowess that they showed on Saturday, that they're a very good side. And I mean, Angus Grant is somebody who, when he joined Huntly a couple of seasons ago, started off quite well, did his cruciate ligament, long road back, and this season, and particularly since Colin Charlesworth's been in charge, he's probably had more opportunities, more of a run of it, and he's taken his chance now. I mean, at 5 on Saturday, but that's him 13 goals for this season, and given the opportunities he's had, I'd say, and also the sort of competition there, and the presence of players like Andy Hunter, I'd say that's a good return.
Okay, well, let's have a look at the latest Breedon Highland League standings. Before we go, this week we need to do the regular competition segment. Last week's competition, we asked you to tell us how many goals Ben Barron had scored since signing for Nairn County. The answer was 8, and the winner is Stephen Wilson. So congratulations, Stephen. If you email sport@pressandjournal.co.uk with your address, we'll get a Highland League Weekly mug sent out to you. This week's teaser question relates to Jamie Mickey's Fantasy Fives, which you've just seen. We want you to tell us, Tan Tran, the former Locos player that was mentioned, what nationality is he? Get that correct and you'll be in the running for a Highland League Weekly mug as well. Answers to the same address, sport@pressandjournal.co.uk. But that's it for this week's edition of Highland League Weekly. Thanks for watching. Thanks to the guys for being here. The next time we see you will be Wednesday on Tuesday night, as was mentioned earlier on. We're filming Brecon City against Bank City at Glebe Park. Big game, we'll have highlights and reaction from it. Before then, please sign up to our Highland League newsletters. There's a link to do that below this video. You can also follow Highland League Weekly on all good social media platforms. But yes, until we see you next, please enjoy the football, whichever games you're watching.